Welcome student of class 10 in the part 2 of the chapter called Federalism. In the previous class we have discussed about the definition, what is called as a federal government, what is a federation and what is the different principles of the federal form of government. We have discussed also the different countries in the historical context, how they come and form the federation. One is your coming together federation and the other is your holding together federations. Today we are going to discuss about what makes India a federal country. Okay, so we have learned from the previous classes that the countries like your Sri Lanka and your Belgium had to face various kinds of consequences regarding the accommodations of the diversity. So could you think, student, what will be the case of India? India is such a diverse nation. It is having a multilingual languages. It is having a multi-religions. So in this way, India's case will be much more complex, isn't it? So today we will discuss right from 1947 till date, how India is able to manage its diversity. So when we remember during the time of our independence, when we got our independence in 1947, we cannot forget that it was a very hard day for us. It was a bloody and a painful partitions of the country, both for India as well as for Pakistan. The people have to migrate it from one country to the other country. They have to leave their land and they have to come to the different countries. So, and many bloodsheds was taken place regarding this. So the partition was not a fruitful for us. It was a great loss of the people as well as the property. So in our country, during the time of independence, we have seen that there was many princely states which have come to accommodate in India. Besides this, we had India was divided into two parts. One is your East Pakistan and then is your West Pakistan. And many provinces also has come to join India. So in this way, India came to be known as the Union of States. Okay, so it has been mentioned in the Constitution of India. The Constitution has declared that our country as a Union of States. The Indian Union is based on the principle of federalism. Since they were right from the British period, these states were not. They were independent, they were having their own kingdoms and empires, and slowly and steadily they were accommodated in the British Empire. And so after, when the British has left India, they have given the monopoly to them. Either they wanted to be an independent, they can remain themselves as an independent, or if they wanted to get merged into Pakistan or India, they can get merged. So this was the consequences that time. So that time Mr. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel has taken an iconic step here, where he has diplomatically brought all the states into one federation, and he has tried to solve the differences in a very tactful manner. Okay, so in our constitution, though the word federation is not been given, but we will see that the procedure which is working in our constitution, it is following the basic principles. Remember the principles which we have talked in the previous classes. Like in mostly in all the countries, they are having two or more than two levels of the government. Similarly, in our country also, we are having a two form of a government. One is your union government, which is known as the Union of States, and the other is your the state government, which is known as the government which is run in the state perspective. Okay, so these are the things which we have seen in the first features of the federalism. So today we will see what makes it in a federal by seeing the working conditions of the country. Okay, so in our country we are having two tiers of a government in the previous time, but after your 90s, it has followed a three-tier system. Okay, it has got also a three-tier system in the local government, and this local government has made the things very easy. Okay, it has made the things very easy because the problem here has been solved in the local level. So it was in 1992, a major steps towards decentralization was taken. We will talk in the later lecture in this class that what is the decentralization. So but for now we'll just understand that in 1992 the constitution has amended to make the third tier of democracy more effective and powerful by giving much more powers to the local level. Okay, so now we are having three tiers of government. One is your union government, the other is your state government, and the third is your local government. Okay, so today we will see how are the powers been distributed into the union government and the state government. Okay, so I have kept it in the board here that there are the different lists which has been mentioned in the constitution and the power which has been given under this list to the different form of a government. So for the union list, so for the central government we are having one list that is known as your union list. Okay, so this union list is consists of how many items? Then it is having a 97 items. Okay, why it is having a 97 items? Because it is mainly concerned to have a uniform policy throughout the country. Okay, so what is the second feature of this? A uniform policy is required on these matters throughout the nation. Okay, the union government alone can make the laws and regulations associated with the subject mentioned in the list. ठीक है, तो पहले बात क्या देखा हम लोगों ने, यूनियन गवर्नमेंट में कितने सारे आइटम्स हैं, 97 आइटम्स हैं. ये इम्पॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि पूरे कंट्री में इसको फॉलो करना हमारे लिए एक बहुत बड़ा चुनौती है. एंड थर्ड क्या है, यूनियन गवर्नमेंट पे ही इसके ऊपर नियम और कानून बना सकते हैं. तो ऐसा कौन कौन सा आइटम्स इसमें रखा गया है, तो इसमें रखा गया है फॉर द नेशनल इम्पोर्टेंस, जैसे कि इट इंक्लूड्स द सब्जेक्ट्स ऑफ नेशनल इम्पोर्टेंस like defense of the country, banking, CBI, Central Bureau of Investigation, your foreign affairs matters, your works related to your United Nations, okay, then your participation in the international meeting conferences, then matters related to your railways, matters related to your national highways, and matters related to your banking, etc. There are many more items. I told you it is altogether 97 items, but the few which is very important I have written it on the board. So under this list, now what happens that the union government is having the right to form as well as to regulate the laws. Okay, then coming up to the state government. Similarly, in the state government, what happens there, as there is a 97 items, here also it is having how many items? 52 items. 52 items. Now, state government has a right to make a law and regulate this under the state jurisdiction. Okay, so what are the subjects which is related to here? So the subjects which is related to the state governments are your policies regarding your police, that means your law and order, your trade and commerce, your agriculture, your irrigation. ठीक है, तो ये सारे जो फैक्टर्स हैं या फिर ये जो सारे सेक्टर्स हैं, ये सारे चीज़ में नियम और कानून किनका लागू होगा? स्टेट गवर्नमेंट का. इसमें सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट अपना हस्तक्षेप नहीं करेंगे. तो ये शो कर रहा है ये दैट इंडिया का जो फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल, आई मीन फेडरलिज्म की जो फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल है, लाइक वेरियस टायर्स ऑफ गवर्नमेंट को अलग अलग पावर मिलना चाहिए. तो अलग अलग पावर इसमें दिखा जा रहा है दैट यूनियन लिस्ट के पास अलग पावर है और स्टेट लिस्ट के पास अलग पावर है. और यूनियन लिस्ट अपना नियम और कानून बनाएंगे इसमें, और स्टेट लिस्ट अपना नियम और कानून बनाएंगे. ठीक है, अब आते हैं हम लोग कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट के पास. तो कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट क्या है? तो जो दोनों बोथ द यूनियन गवर्नमेंट एंड द स्टेट गवर्नमेंट टुगेदरली जो कॉमन इंटरेस्ट की चीज़ है उस पर नियम और कानून बनाते हैं अपने सहमति से, तो उसको क्या कहेंगे? कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट. ओके, सो द कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट इंक्लूड सब्जेक्ट्स ऑफ कॉमन इंटरेस्ट. ठीक है, इट इंक्लूड सब्जेक्ट्स ऑफ कॉमन इंटरेस्ट, both the state government as well as the union government. Both state government या union government इस पर नियम बनाएंगे, जैसे कि क्या? एजुकेशन, forest, trade union, marriage, adoptions and succession. तो इस आधार पे इन पर नियम बन सकता है, ठीक है। तो इसमें दोनों हस्तक्षेप करेंगे, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट भी हस्तक्षेप करेंगे और सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट भी हस्तक्षेप करेंगे। अब बात आती है, तो ये तो संविधान में ये बात जिस समय संविधान लिखा गया था तो ये सारी बातों को मेंशन कर दी गई थी, लेकिन संविधान 1950 में इम्प्लीमेंट हुआ था, उससे पहले लिखा गया था। तो जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मेकर्स है उन्होंने ये प्रावधान रखा है कि आगे भी कोई ऐसा चेंजेस आ सकता है जिसमें हम लोगों को संविधान में ज़रूरत हो सकती है अमेंडमेंट्स करने की। तो चेंजेस की, बिकॉज चेंजेस इज द लॉ ऑफ नेचर ना, तो तो ऐसा अगर प्रोविजन रहेगा तभी जाके उस पर नियम और कानून बन सकता है। तो उसके लिए भी एक स्पेस बनाया गया जहां पर फ्यूचरिस्टिक प्लान को ध्यान में रखते हुए इस सेक्टर को कंडक्ट किया। तो ये सेक्टर कौन सा है? तो इट इज योर कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट। ये कौन सा लिस्ट है? कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट। तो कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट क्या है? इट इंक्लूड्स आई बेग योर पार्डन, इट इज योर रेसिडुअरी पावर। तो रेसिडुअरी पावर में क्या है? जो भी चीज नया आया या फिर चेंजेस आया तो उस चीज को उसमें डाला जाता है। जैसे कि आप देखेंगे, जैसे कि आपके बुक में एक एग्जाम्पल दिया हुआ है, आपकी बुक में दिया हुआ है कि सब्जेक्ट सच एज कंप्यूटर सॉफ्टवेयर दैट केम अप आफ्टर द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। कंप्यूटर जैसी एक जो सब्जेक्ट है ये आपके संविधान के गठन होने के बाद आया। तो इसमें जितने भी सेक्टर्स है, आईटी सेक्टर्स है जिसमें बहुत सारे चेंजेस आती हैं, या फिर साइबर क्राइम रिलेटेड है, ये सारे चीज़ कहाँ पर दिया जा सकता है? तो इसकी एंट्री कहाँ पर है? रेसिडुअरी पावर। और रेसिडुअरी पावर का मेन फीचर्स क्या है कि इसमें सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट अपने नियम और कानून को बनाएंगे। अभी रिसेंटली आपने देखा है जैसे कि कोविड-19 ना, तो कोविड-19 में जो पैंडेमिक कोविड-19 है ये अभी रिसेंटली आई है एंड इट हैज़ बीन अफेक्टेड इन ऑल द कंट्रीज एज वेल एज इन इंडिया। सो देयर नीड्स टू बी सम रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस रिगार्डिंग हाउ टू मैनेज दिस कोविड-19. So who has taken this step? So we have seen right from the beginning that the central government under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi has given us various kinds of plans from time to time. Like he has brought the lockdowns for the different countries in the different intervals, and lockdown 1, lockdown 2, lockdown 3, lockdown 4. So in this way, like he has tried to control the chain. Besides this, there are the various kinds of a testing device which has been introduced, and there are various kinds of rules where the peoples have to follow regarding the administrative things which needs to be controlled, and the public places needs to be prohibited where the peoples are not supposed to go. So these kinds of law has been brought under whom? It has been brought under, of course, central government. So it is a central government which takes a special provisions regarding these kinds of things. So this is what happens in your residuary power. In the residuary powers, anything new which comes under the list will be controlled by the central government. So seeing this feature, we can say that some central government is having some exclusive powers. Besides the state government, central government works. Central government's power is much more greater than your state government. Okay, then after that we'll see that in some other cases also, on the basis of our constitution, we have seen that all the states are not having a special privileges, or some states are not getting an equal privileges. So one is not, all states are not having a special privilege. Some states are having more privileges, and these things how has been treated in India. Like for an example, if we take Jammu and Kashmir. So in Jammu and Kashmir, what we have seen that there is a special privileges given in the constitution. Okay, so these are special privileges has made Jammu's Kashmir matter to be very different. Okay, so during the independence, what happened? There was the amendment. The peoples who have amended the constitution, they have given us some special privilege to some states, and under these states, they were the Jammu Kashmir and some northeast states. So under these states, now what happened? Like you are not supposed to buy the land there, and the property. You are not supposed to buy the land, or the other things what they have mentioned in your book is that you cannot become the permanent resident of that state. Okay, besides this, in Jammu Kashmir is one, like anything matters which has been discussed in the Parliament of India and it is passed by them will be again debated in the Parliament of the Jammu Kashmir, and if they think that is an appreciable or it is fine for them to be passed it out, then they will pass it out. So these special provision was given under the Constitution of India. Okay, but recently what we have seen, the special provisions has been removed and Article 3 and 16 has been abolished by the central government, and now there is no special privileges given to the Jammu and Kashmir government. Okay, now they are as usual, they are just like the same states like the other states are. Besides this, some small states like it is very difficult for them to get like two conditions as that these are the regions which are too little to become an independent states. I mean the area is very small to become as an independent state, but their regionality or their respective identity or the customs or the cultures makes them not to be merged with the different existing states. So what will happen in these two cases? So they have to come under the union government. So these union governed states are known as your different union territories, like for example your Lakshadweep, your Chandigarh, your Delhi. So these territories do not bear the powers of the states. Okay, the central government has some special powers in running these regions. So first we have seen the residuary power, the central government is having an exclusive power. Secondly, we have seen that the central government manages some union territories. So these are the exclusive powers given to the central government. So these power sharing between the state government and the union government is the basic structure of the constitution, which we have already seen in the union list as well as in the state list. The parliament cannot bring any change on its own. Okay, what is how it makes a federal? In the federal, we have known that the state government and the central government works independently. So if anything needs to be changed, the unanimously they cannot change it. They have to take the approval of both the state government as well as the parliament, both the houses of parliament, that is the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, as well as the legislature. At least half of the total states needs to approve the provisions. If these provisions are approved, then it will be considered as that it is passed. Okay, so this is one of the power. And the second, we have seen the power with the judiciary. If any disputable case has been arise between the state government or between the central and the state government or between the different houses in the parliament, then the judiciary plays a significant role in overseeing the implementation of the constitutional procedures and provisions. It sees that the government which has been elected cannot and should not work according to its own ways and means. It has to follow the rules of the constitution. In case of any disputes about the power division, the Supreme Court and the High Court makes a decision, which I have already told you. The state and the union government have the power to increase the resources. Okay, so when they have to manage the different affairs in the government, both the state government and the central government has the power to increase the tax, and these tax has been collected through the different sources, and then it has been implemented in the development of the different infrastructure of the state and the central government. Okay, so this is how we can say that India, though not being a federal government, but using the different federal principles in order to run the federation of the country. Okay, so the next we will see how the federalism is practiced and what are the different factors which helps in practicing the federalism. Okay, so let's see further. Now we are going to see how is federalism practiced. So in any country, you see, when the federalism is to be successful, it is not only that the constitutional provision should be there on what basis the federalism is successful in a country. Okay. Besides the constitutional provision, there is another thing which is also very helpful in the country to make the federalism successful. Like for an example, in India, if we see, not only the constitutional provisions was essential for the success of federalism, but even the democratic politics in India has equally been responsible for having a success of the federalism in our country. We will see throughout the discussion here that what are these democratic principles. Okay, so these democratic principles had made the public sure regarding the spirit of the federalism. It also boosted the desire for living together and also respects for the diversity. Okay, and they have all together come to share the common identity, that is of becoming an Indian first, then belonging to the different religion. Okay, so we will see how this has been done. So in the first case, we have taken the linguistic basis. Okay, so the state was formed on the linguistic line. Okay, so during the formation of linguistic states during the time of 1947, we have thought that the states which spoke the different languages needs to be kept together. Okay, so in that basis we started forming the states on the basis of a language. Okay, so it was this journey has started right from 1947 till date. So there is lots of variation we have come to see in the boundaries of the India. Okay, so the previous states which was seen in 1947 have is nearly vanished, or it is wiped out from the scene of the map. Okay, and the new states have emerged on, and all these new states have not only been emerged on the basis of language, but also in order to protect their culture. Okay, so some states have emerged to provide security to the respective community. Okay, language group, social diversity, and their lifestyle. This policy was taken, so we can say India is a federal principle. Okay, it is working on the federal principle. So as we have seen in the Sri Lanka, that how the people have demonstrated when the Sinhalas was given the rights and languages authority, and the other Tamilians were not given. So they have kept this in their mind that the peoples are not supposed to be agitated regarding the language policy. So they have kept in the concern that all the languages and the cultures and the identity and the social diversity should be kept in mind while forming the state. Okay, so that is why there are many states which has been formed on the language basis or on the culture basis. Like for an example, your Uttarakhand, your Jharkhand, your Nagaland, your Haryana, and the current example is your Telangana coming out from your Andhra Pradesh. Okay, so these are one of the famous examples where we can say that India has following the federal principles in order to accommodate the diversity, and in the local level it has given the authority to the different states to manage and protect their culture. Okay, so this was done in their linguistic demand. Okay, initially some critics had agitated regarding it. They criticized this policy. They thought that if this is to be done, then our unity will be in danger. But later, when it was working out smoothly, it was found that it was just an assumption. The central, it has not led to the disintegration of the state, but it has more united the different states towards their own culture as well as towards the nation. Okay, so we can say that the central government resisted the linguistic states for some time, but the experience has indicated that the formation of the linguistic states has really made the nation more united. Okay, it has made the administration in the states easier. Now you see, when the peoples are coming, we are having altogether how many constituencies? So there are how many seats in the Lok Sabha? So there are 545 seats in the Lok Sabha, and in the Rajya Sabha we are having 245. and all is coming from the different regions, from the different cultures, and all are demanding to protect their own cultures and own region. So in order to manage these things fluently and efficiently, we need to divide the federations into the smaller units. And if this is done, we have seen that right from 1947 till date, it has not disintegrated our country, but in fact it has brought the trust among the people of the country, both at the central government as well as to the state government. Okay, so the linguistic policy practicing federalism had been to be proved successful. Okay, then the second test for the federalism is your language policy. So in our country, we know that it is a multi-languages country, multilingual country. So in your page number 17, they have given your 21 scheduled languages, and besides this, we are having our official languages also, that is your Hindi as well as your English. Okay, so what does it say is that India is not having any national languages as Sinhala had. Okay, so Sinhala's national languages was your Sinhala, and then major religion was the Buddhism. This was not done in our country. We had no national languages. The main point for this was that if suppose the national languages was created, at least half of the population should have spoke the national languages. But when we have seen the data, then only the 40% of the peoples are there who are speaking only the Hindi. Rest of the peoples are having the different dialects. Okay, so that is why Hindi was not to be considered as the national language. And what about English? Then the English was what that till 1965 there was a provision to implement the English in our country. And after that, there were many southern states who have revolted against its not implementing the English as an official languages, because many people, they did not speak different languages. Either they spoke Tamil or Malayalam or Kannada. So for that reason, the English had needed to be implemented in the country. So for that reason, we are having the two official languages. One is your English and the other is your Hindi. Besides this, we are having 21 or 22. I presume it is how many languages? 22 languages been mentioned in our constitution. So these 22 languages can be implemented in the different respective states. Like for an example, if you are filling the form of the UPSC, then you're writing the exams, then you may write this paper in your other regional languages which has been mentioned in the constitution. Okay, it is no hard and fast and rule that you have to write in your English or in your Hindi. It has been mentioned in your book here. A candidate in an examination conducted for the central government position may opt to take the examination in any of these languages. Which languages? Languages which has been mentioned in the constitution. Okay, the 22 scheduled languages. Okay, states too have their own recognized official languages. Now, recognized official languages means to say that you cannot make any state mandatory to follow these official languages. If any states wants to follow their own regional languages, like for example, Bengal, they wanted to follow Bangla, Tamils, they wanted to follow Tamil. Then if the state of North India, they wanted to follow their own languages like Gujarati, and if the peoples in the Orissa, they want to follow their own language, Oriya. So it is not mandatory that they will follow the official languages. They can also go with their regional languages. So with this kind of space given, we can say that the second test for the democratic principle as well as the federalism has been working out in this factor also. So the language policy has also been successful in running out the federalism in our country. Then the third is what? Center-state relation. So in the center-state relation, what we have seen? We have seen that before 1919, I have mentioned here, before 1919, central government had more power than the state government. Means not before 1919, after when the Janata Party has come, there was only the Congress government. So both in the center as well as in the state, they had one monotonous power, that is your Congress government. So that time the central government did not have so much of provision to share the powers with the central government. Okay, the state government did not have the provision to share the powers with the central government, because both the powers parties were quite same. Okay, the parties which were in the central government also had the power in the state government. So in the full-fledged, they did not work in their own manner. But after 1990s, when the time coalition government has come, coalition government is a kind of a government where a party doesn't get a majority seats in the government. So in order to run the government, they need the support of the different parties. Like for example, you can say the NDA is a non-democratic alliance, and UPA is a United Province Alliance. So this is an alliance. I'll just tell you what is the difference between alliance and coalition also. But for the coalition now, after the election, if none of the party gets in a majority of the vote, then 2 or the 3 party tries to form the party and form the government. And this government is known as the coalition government. During this time only, many state parties and the regional parties have come up and supported the central government, which means what? They were considered or they were given the part to play its role in the central government. So it was only after the coalition government that the regional states or the regional government was referred to come and interfere in the matters of the central government to form the party and to take their decision. Okay, so in this way we see that the federal features has been practiced in the country and it has been looked after. So this is how, because of the democratic principle, peoples are allowing the peoples to come from the lower order and come to the higher order and make and join their hands together to run the country. So this is what? This is an understanding developing between the different persons or different representatives in the country. And whereas an alliance has been considered, alliance is just before your election. When you are understanding that you are not been able to win the election under your with your own efforts, so you form an alliance with a different party, like the grand alliance of your state government, that is your RJD and then what? JDU, no? So these are making an alliance and they have fought an election, and not only RJD has won, JDU also has got maximum number of seats as well as the RJD also. So these together they'll make an alliance and they'll form the government. So this is a basic difference between the alliance and the coalition government. Alliance you form before the elections and coalitions you form it after the elections. Okay, after the result of the elections. So in these 3 procedures, we have seen how the federalism is practiced in our country. One is the linguistic basis. The first test has been successful on the linguistic ground. We have seen that the different states have come up and they have not only come up to protect their language, but also their culture, their different social economic diversity, okay, and their languages and their community. And the language policy, we have seen that in spite of having the 40%, the people has not given Hindi as a national language. Perhaps it has only become as your official languages. And English was to be run only till 1965. The people of the southern states, especially the Tamil Nadu and all, they have protested regarding it, and so that is why English has to be made as your official language, because many of the procedures could not be done in the Hindi, and many people do not understand Hindi, so that is why English has also been kept in your parallel side. Then the Sanskrit is also one, is you can say that the Sanskrit is your mother languages, but its existence in the country is very less. Okay, so it cannot be kept in the main languages. It cannot be kept as your national languages. Then let's say in central and state relation, we have seen it has developed after 1990, because the states have come up and they have joined their hands together and this coalition government has given the path to come to the central government and play its own distinctive role. Now we will see what is the decentralization and how the decentralization is in practice in India. So, in the decentralization of a government, we have come to know in this lecture that the federal system has been practiced in the two units. One is the central unit and the state unit. So, India, when the question comes regarding India, so can only these two units manage the versatility of the India? When we have thought over it, then simply the answer comes no. That in order to maintain the versatility as well as the differences, and in order to see their problems in the local level, the things needs to be sprouted out in the local manner. Okay, so for that reason, in 1992, I have already mentioned you that the third tier of system has come into existence, and with the 73rd Amendment, this was successful, and we have brought the decentralization in our country. Okay. So, 73rd Amendment 1992. It was strengthened by Ashok Mehta Committee and later by L.M. Singhvi Committee 1986, and it was formalized in 1992 by the 73rd Amendment to the Indian Constitution. Okay, so the first state which was first introduced this kind of a system was Rajasthan. Okay, now the question comes here, why there was a need to introduce this system. So like when you consider the case of the population in UP, then you'll see that one Russia is your one UP. Okay, and when you see the Germany, then the population of Maharashtra is one Germany. So these are having an individual state. Germany and Russia, they are independent state, and we, after becoming the council of a state, still it is very difficult for us to manage with the two federal system. One is a unitary and one is a center and the other is a state. So the demand of the local government has been started. Okay, so for this reason, the decentralization was taking place. So what is the decentralization? In a common term, you can say the division of the power in the local authorities' hand is known as the decentralization. But formally, how will say the definition? When the power is taken away from the state and the central government and provided to the local government, it is known as a decentralization. I repeat once again, when the power is taken away from the central government and the state government and given to the local government, then that is known as the decentralization of government. Why is this basically done? So the main motto regarding this is what? The local things are much better being treated by the local peoples, because they know the scenario of that condition and they can generalize that what needs it to be upgraded. Okay, so the basic idea is that there are numerous issues and problems which are settled best at the local level. People have better knowledge of problems in their own localities. They also have realized one important principle of democracy, that is called the local self-government. And in this way, what will happen? You will give some privileges to the common peoples in coming up and giving their decisions or taking part in the decision-making authority. So for that reason, we are having a three-tier of system. Now we will see that local government being practiced in the rural areas, and then we will see the local government practiced in the urban areas. So in the board, I have done one. I have created one box here. Now this is your local level and this is your local level. One practice in your village level and the other practice in your urban level. So in the village level, we are having a three-tier. One is your Gram Panchayat, one is your Gram Panchayat there at the village level. Then we are having at the block level, that is your Panchayat Samiti, and then we are having at the district level, that is your Zilla Parishad. Okay. Now the Gram Panchayat is formed by whom? Then it is formed by your Gram Sabha. It is formed by the Gram Sabha. Okay. And the head of the Gram Sabha is known as your Sarpanch. Okay. So each village or the group of village in several states have a Gram Panchayats. Okay. And it is a council including several ward members, and these ward members are often known as a Panch. Okay. And the head which guide this Sabha is known as your Sarpanch. Okay. So, and they are directly elected by all the adult populations living at that village or the ward. So, this is of your Gram Sabha. And what does it does? Then it is a decision making body for the complete village. The Panchayat works under the overall supervision of the Gram Sabha. All the voters in the village are its members, and it has to meet at least twice or thrice in a year to approve the annual budget. So this is the role of your Gram Sabha. Okay, so it is a decision making body. It approves the budget and it meets twice or thrice in a year for introducing the approval of the annual budget. Okay, so then we are having in the block level, there is a Panchayat Samiti and its members are elected by the Panchayat members and it is headed by the block district officer. Okay, so Panchayat Samiti, we can say block, or we can also say mandal. Okay, a few Gram Panchayats are grouped together to form what is usually called a Panchayat Samiti, and the members of this block are elected by all the Panchayat members in that locality, mandals or your Panchayat Samitis. Okay, and the head of the Panchayat Samiti is your block development officer. It is a block development officer. Okay, what is the work of this video? Then it monitors the implementation of all the programs related to the planning and the development of the blocks. Then on the district level, we are having what? Zilla Parishad. It is formed by the elected members, and its basically members are from the Lok Sabha and the MLA of the district. Okay, and the head is known as the Zilla Chairperson. Okay, Zilla Dakt. So it has been said that all the Panchayat Samitis or the mandals in a district together are called your Zilla Parishad. Most members of the Zilla Parishads are elected by MLAs of that district, and the members of the Lok Sabha and some other officials of other district level bodies are also its members. Okay, and the chairperson is the political head of the Zilla Parishad. So these are the things, three level which has been practiced in the village level, where from the grassroots to your district level, there are the authorities who sees the works and the policies, how it is running in the different level. Okay, and in the urban government, we are having what? We are having the local government under the small town as well as in the big cities. In the small town, it is your municipalities, and the head is your municipal chairperson. And the big cities is been called as a municipal corporation, and the head here is known as your mayor. Okay, so the things which has been done by the Gram Panchayat, Panchayat Samiti and Zilla Parishad, it's also the things which has been looked over by the urban government. Okay, so they see all the the sanitation, the street lights and the garbage control system. All these things have been controlled by the municipal committees or municipal corporation. Okay, so with this, what we have come to know, that this new system of local government is the successful way of introducing democracy at the grassroots level, where the people can understand their problem and they can give the remedies regarding how to curtail out this problem. So we have seen that nearly 36 lakh elected representatives in the municipalities and panchayats all over the country are participating in this kind of the local level government. Okay, so what does it say? Only the constitutional provision is not only enough for running the federalism, but it is the people's will, the trust and the participation also makes it successful. So we have seen how that the local level, which has been divided into the three parts, is working out well with the support of the common people, as well as in the urban areas. We are seeing that the peoples are cooperating with the municipal committee and the municipal corporation, okay, for sorting out the problem. So what does it say? What are the advantages of this decentralization? And the advantages of the decentralization is what I've mentioned one by one in the on the board. The first advantage is, it says that the sharing of power between the central, state and the local government, it reduces the conflict. Okay, any group will feel that they are aloof and they are apart or they have been discriminated. Okay, so with this, what we are, first and foremost, we are able to reduce the conflict. Secondly, The problems will be solved at local level. As I told you, the local problems is better known by the local peoples. Okay, better than Mr. Modi or Mr. Nitish Kumar. The local sarpanch will know the problem much better of the village than your Modi or your Chief Minister Mr. Nitish Kumar. Then the second is what? The local peoples know better on where to spend the money and how to manage the things efficiently. Okay, so the term efficiently here means to say that the first thing which is giving a problem to them, that needs to be sorted out by the local people. Okay, there may be various demands, but which is a basic need that needs to be sorted out clearly. And who will say that the problem is more acute? That it is the local people. Okay, so they will understand that where the money is supposed to be sent first and how it is to be managed efficiently. Then the fourth one is what? People participate directly in decision making. Like for an example, we have seen the case of Kerala, where we will see the highest literacy rate, where the people, ordinary people, is participating to make a plan for the development in their local area. So it has been successful, and we have seen the literacy rate also that it is very much pleasing. Okay, so in this way we can say that people will understand the, if not in a very exhilarating way, but we can understand slowly and steadily this will make a changes. Okay. And coming to the powers given to the constitution to local government. Now, how can this be more powerful? Okay, these are the things which is going to be very helpful. So, the constitution in 1992 has taken some major steps towards the decentralization of the power. The constitution was amended to make the third tier of democracy more effective by giving them much more the legal power given on the local bodies. Okay, and the first legal power which has been given is what? That the constitution is mandatory to hold elections for local bodies. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के लिए ये अब जिम्मेवारी हो गया है कि हर जिस तरह से हर 5 साल बाद हमारे यहाँ इलेक्शंस होती है, तो यहाँ पर भी जो भी लोकल अथॉरिटीज़ को चुना जाएगा विल बी डन ड्यू टू द इलेक्शन. ओके, तो इसके लिए एक स्टेट इलेक्शन कमीशन का भी गठन होना ज़रूरी है, बिकॉज वी नीड एन इंडिपेंडेंट बॉडी. तो उसके लिए एन इंडिपेंडेंट इंस्टीट्यूशन नोन एज द स्टेट इलेक्शन कमीशन हैज़ बीन फॉर्म्ड इन ईच स्टेट. जैसे हर एक स्टेट में एक स्टेट इलेक्शन का बॉडी हो गया है जो कि वहाँ की म्यूनिसिपल इलेक्शन कंडक्ट करेगी और विलेज इलेक्शंस कंडक्ट करेगी या फिर पंचायत इलेक्शन. तीसरा क्या है? इट प्रोवाइड्स सीट्स ना, रिजर्वेशन दी गई है वल्नरेबल पीपल्स को या फिर माइनॉरिटीज़ को रिजर्वेशन दी गई है. जैसे कि वुमेन्स को भी रिजर्वेशन दी गई है. यहाँ पे वुमेन्स को 1/3 ऑफ द पोजीशन रिजर्वेशन दी गई है विलेज पंचायत में. ये पार्लियामेंट में नहीं दी गई है, लेकिन विलेज पंचायत में इसको रिजर्वेशन दी गई है. ओके, सो इन द वुमेन कमिंग इन द वल्नरेबल ग्रुप इज अंडर दिस कैटेगरी. बिसाइड्स दिस सम अदर माइनॉरिटीज लाइक फॉर एन एग्जाम्पल योर शेड्यूल कास्ट, शेड्यूल ट्राइब्स और ओबीसी को भी रिजर्वेशन यहाँ पे दी गई है. ओके, तो लिखा गया है क्या? सीट्स आर रिजर्व इन द एग्जीक्यूटिव हेड्स ऑफ द इलेक्टेड बॉडीज ऑफ दीज इंस्टीट्यूशन फॉर द शेड्यूल ट्राइब्स, शेड्यूल कास्ट एंड अदर बैकवर्ड क्लास. ठीक है, तो इस तरह से हम लोग समझते हैं कि रूरल लोकल गवर्नमेंट इज पॉपुलरली कॉल्ड एज पंचायती राज और द अर्बन लोकल गवर्नमेंट इज पॉपुलरली कॉल्ड एज द म्युनिसिपल कमिटी और म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन, एंड दे आर डूइंग देयर वर्क वेल. सो द प्रोसेस ऑफ फेडरलिज्म इज वर्किंग आउट सक्सेसफुली. ओके, सो यहाँ पे हम लोग ये जनरलाइज कर सकते हैं दैट what we can generalize that as the central government is working hard for the nation, so as the local government is working hard for the benefit of the own localities. Okay, so the new system of local government is the largest experiment taken place in democracy conducted in any region of the world, which says that the federalism is practiced in a better form in Indian government also. Though the word federation has not been used in the country, but still this doesn't make makes a sense that our country is not having a federal principle. More or less, we are working out with this principle, and we are catering the differences which has been created, have been created in our country, and how to accommodate the differences with the help of distribution of the power. So I presume this lecture was fruitful for you, and I hope that you will read the NCERT properly, and you will discuss and what we have discussed in the previous classes, right from the federation to the principle, to the different routes of ways of federation, and then what makes India federal, what are the different principles, and how is it done, and the decentralization. These all we have already discussed in this lecture, and the coming lectures will be given up with the different chapters. We will see you very soon, and thank you very much, and have a nice day.